good afternoon, good evening, boys, girls, ladies, gentlemen, whatever it is. You're back with hashtag Keep the Flame Alive. Why hashtag? Because Mark Hadia just said so. What we're going to be discussing today is the similarities and differences between the different styles of Aikido. Before I introduce my guest, I want to acknowledge our first sponsor, Shudokan book. I don't know if you can see that. If you can't, buy the book anyway. Shudokan book says happily sponsored, hashtag Keep the Flame Alive, and aikitv.online. It's important. aikitv.online funds these interviews, and you know that's the spiel over. Okay, we have John Marshall Shihan, who's a 6th Dan in Yoshinkan Aikido and a Go-Dan in Gyokushin Ryu Aikido. We have Neil Saunders Sensei, who's a 6th Dan in Yoshinkan Aikido and a 4th Dan in Tomiki or Shudokan Aikido. And we have Daniel Brasse Sensei, who's a 5th Dan in Iwama Ryu or Aikikai. Right? Now, my reason for getting these gentlemen here is because they are all experienced in not just one style of Aikido, but at least 2. So they have a source of comparison. I know there's a lot of teachers out there who are more experienced and higher ranked than these gentlemen, but they are here for a reason. Plus, I respect and I like them. So there you go. My show, my rules. Okay. We'll start with John Marshall Shihan. And sorry, guys, if you don't mind, I'll just call you by first names. Is that okay?
Of course, certainly, yeah.
John, please, tell us a bit about your Dan ranks and yeah.
The journey or just the...
No, not the journey. They can read that in your book.
Okay, so coming out soon. So I started Aikido, as most people know, in 1985 with Sensei Joe Thambu. Went to Japan, did the Sensei course. I'm currently ranked 6th Dan in Yoshinkan Aikido and was conferred the title of Shihan in 2017 or 18. I've been also practicing Gyokushin Ryu Aikido, which is a derivative of Yoshinkan, although it's quite different. It's pretty much the Aikido portion of Yoshinkan Budo, which is quite an extensive system which incorporates judo, karate, and various Okinawan weapons and Japanese sword. It's founded by Washizu Sensei, who was one of Mochizuki Sensei's top disciples, and I've been studying under him since the end of 2012. So that's pretty much where I am now. Okay.
Neil, you're next.
I started Aikido in March '94, which was Tomiki Aikido. Trained a lot in that. 2001, I started training with David Rubens Sensei after I did a seminar with Inoue Kancho, which was just phenomenal. And I trained in both for a long time. Through Rubens Sensei, I met Mustard Sensei in 2006. And I graded for Yondan in Tomiki Aikido in 2007. And then 2009, 2010, which I'm sure we'll get onto, I transferred into the Yoshinkan, dropped Tomiki Aikido around about 2008 and did Yoshinkan ever since.
Okay. And to our heretic brother, Daniel?
Good morning. Oh, my martial arts journey altogether started in 1978. I did karate before finding Aikido in 93, 94. That was back in Melbourne. I started Aikido under Michael Phil Sensei on Kerr Street. And back then I was getting ranks directly from Saito Sensei back in Japan, and that was Iwama, like you mentioned, Iwama Ryu ranking. That went all the way through to 2002, and by the time Sensei passed away in 2002, my Shodan, Nidan, Sandan, Iwama system got transferred over to Aikikai. And currently, as you said, I've got my 5th Dan or Godan from the Homu Dojo, Aikikai.
Okay. You also did a bit of Ki Society, and you introduced me to Maeda Sensei, who changed my mind a lot on a lot of things, especially how I viewed Ki Society. What other experiences have you had in Aikido?
Yeah, absolutely. Key society, you know, with yourself. I visited your dojo in Melbourne a few times, and I've at Yoshinkan Aikido. But the key society, like you mentioned, Maeda Sensei is a 7th Dan Shihan, direct teacher, direct student from Tohei Sensei. He was sharing my space, my dojo. And the first time I worked with him, I thought, wow, he had something to offer, just like he said, and felt his Aikido felt really, really interesting. So yeah, so and from you say Iwama system and Aikikai system, it was quite different for a beginner, the beginner's experience. The Iwama system is very much centered in Kihon practice. There's a lot of basics.
Okay, wait. We'll get to that. We'll get,
okay.
Don't jump the gun there.
Oh,
All right.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Let me read you guys something, yeah? The Aikido population keeps growing every year. This is really gratifying phenomena. However, when thinking about the future of Aikido 20 to 30 years from hence, we, Aikido devotees, must constantly watch its growth with a non-complacent attitude. Such attitude is necessary because we must choose the optimum form and process of Aikido development in treading the path to fulfillment of the art, etc., etc. That was written in 1975. Daniel, do you know who wrote that?
Saito Sensei, Morihiro Saito.
Yeah, it was the preface from his book.
Correct.
And it's something I want to discuss, and you know, hence this interview and the interviews I do. I think the old way of teaching, where we never ask the teachers questions, that's finished, that's gone. We need to give people more information and relevant information. So what do you think about that statement? That was in 1975, and the Aikido population has exploded. Sorry to my friends in California, but there's a lot of people out there doing Californian Aikido, which is like, you know, rebirthing in the dojo and, you know, some pretty strange stuff. You know, is that keeping on the track? Is we're going to call it Tomiki Aikido so it doesn't get confused with Shudokan. Is Tomiki Aikido doing that with its competition? Is Gyokushin Ryu doing that with its with what it's doing? Is Iwama doing that? You know, let's talk about that. Are we staying true to the style? Neil, you want to go first? You can approach it from whichever Ryu you want.
Yeah, okay. So from a Tomiki's perspective, you know, the system itself is quite systematic in its approach, which I think, you know, the Iwama and the Yoshinkan pieces are. And although it has evolved and there is variation in the technique, the system itself hasn't really changed significantly in 40 years, you know, 40, 50 years. You know, they have their Kihon, so their Rando Inakata, the 17 basic techniques. They have the different levels of free play, all the way up to Shiai, so the competition. So there's lots of levels beneath that, and there's variation with the Tanto and empty-handed. And then they have the Koryo Nakata, which is your more traditional form of Aikido. And that hasn't changed. I think that the thing for me to flip the question on your head, and yes, it grows. It's not about Aikido growing. It's about what gets missed in Aikido, the Aiki aspect. And ultimately what I see and what I've experienced, it just becomes a hollow form. And there's no Aiki, there's no feeling, there's no intent, and all of that sort of stuff. And regardless of the style, they all have the same problems. Remove the politics from, you know, the situation. We have this challenge about being relevant in today, but we also have the problem is that we don't do ourselves any favors by some of the crap that you see on YouTube or people professing that they can do, and they just can't. So, you know, the systems are the systems. They haven't really changed, in my opinion.
Okay.
I don't think I answered your question either.
No, but don't worry.
We'll
I'm
cover
going to
that.
haunt you with that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree. Actually, the relevance, what Neil just said, is a big one. Coming from a Yoshinkan background, where it's a very strict school, very, you know, the emphasis is on the Kihon, the dosa and the Kihon Waza, Jiwaza, and in my opinion, it hasn't really evolved past that. Going to Shizuoka and studying with Brasse Sensei, their idea is quite opposite. It's like they believe that you should ask and you should question your teacher. That was a big thing Mochizuki Sensei was known for, that you should always question your teacher. And in the Yoshinkan, you dare never, excuse me, Sensei, what do you think about this? You get slapped on the head. But the idea of being able to ask questions and the research component is a big thing that attracted me to the Gyokushin and what I've been trying to incorporate in my own training. But I think the relevance is really important. And I've used the Gyokushin to further my understanding of Aikido mixed with Yoshinkan as well. So I think relevance is, plays a big part. I'm not sure if that answered your question, but.
I'll haunt you with that too. Yeah. Daniel?
Yeah, definitely. I agree with both gentlemen here. The relevance, what I call in my dojo, empty techniques. If you're doing something in the school, you should be able to go out and apply the technique on anyone. If otherwise you're kind of wasting your time. In regards to asking questions, back in '95 when I first met Saito Sensei at the seminar, we had translators, but back in Japan, sometimes I was often in training where nobody would translate the words. So you really had to pay attention on what was going on and learn the technique that way. And there was not much explanation going on after that as well. More explanation is given typically at seminars. But to answer your question, should teachers answer more questions? I do. I mean, there's no talking during class, which disrupts everything, but I do encourage questions from time to time. And techniques being diluted, I think that's the word you use. I don't know what.
I didn't use that word.
Yeah, I didn't do the other words. One of the words like techniques changing. I think it's very important. We all know Kihon. To go to Kihon is the key. And as you grow in the art, you start developing and you start experimenting on things, which is fine. But I think it's really important to keep the Kihon in place, or the basics in place, and pass it down to the new people.
I can give you a run for your money on that one, but I won't. So each of you talked about relevance, and I think, yeah, you're right. But John, you posted something on Facebook of Nishio Sensei's quote, and you asked about cross-training between the Aiki styles and stuff like that. And in his quote, he said, if you do Kokyuho against another Aiki person, it means nothing. And it's true, but that's what we all do. So how do you keep it relevant? How do each of the styles keep it relevant? In Tomiki Aikido, I don't think Aikido was ever developed to combat another Aikidoka. Same as Judo wasn't developed to combat a Judoka. So where's the relevance? If I go ski, Neil, you take my hand, I know what technique you're going for. So how do we keep it relevant? What's the, how do each of these styles, or how do you as teachers keep it relevant? Daniel, you can go first this time.
Okay. The way I teach, I do have other classes that I put on schedule from time to time where we do self-defense, based on my experience. You guys are, Joe Thambu, probably you know that.
Please,
I worked at Pentridge.
Tell them your background.
My background. So back in Melbourne, in 1991, I worked at Pentridge prison. And 1990, I think it was, when I first started. And that's where I met someone who did Aikido. And over there, you had to deal with real bad people. And were in scuffles many, many times. And the way that, the karate, learning to, you have batons and all that. Of course, you have tools to use to keep yourself safe and to control situations. But when I found Aikido and when I did a couple of techniques, I thought, wow, that could be really useful on the job. Especially when I left the government, I worked private security, worked the doors, And very often working, it became a fist fight. I used Aikido to pin people down. I use a simple Ikkyo pin to keep people down. And that's relevance for me. If I can use it outside the dojo, then that's, to me, I'm doing myself a favor. And
So
if I do the same thing with my
how do you
students.
keep the teaching along the relevant lines?
How do I keep the teaching?
Yeah. I mean, you used it, but how do you teach your students to use it or keep it relevant?
There's a physical side we talked about, but to me, it's more than just that. I mean, we all know that, I'm not trying to preach here, but the relevance here, we're going to try to become better people and contribute to society in a better way. I do that with myself, I know that. And I try to make others who come through the dojo to realize you come here for Aikido, but you make out something else. Mikhail Sensei said something for me many years ago when he said the perceived benefit of Aikido pales in comparison once you get into it. From when you get into it, the perceived benefit from once you started pales in comparison, which is after so many, a few decades now, it's very true.
Okay, cool. Neil, you forgotten the question because I have.
No, I think with regards to relevance, I mean, for me personally, Aikido's helped me on many different levels, and you try to impart that on your students. I mean, it's helped me to develop this big fuck off sign on my forehead so people stay away, which is always good. Sorry, but it's true. For me, training is just that. It's training. Do I need to be combat effective? No, not really. I'm not a small guy. I'm quite a big guy. I mean, as you know, you've met me. And as I said, I've got this big sign on my head. So most people stay away from me. But if I have to use it, and I've only ever used it once, and that was only been training for 2 years, and it didn't let me down. I know lots of people, like Daniel said, I know one of my best friends, he was in the prison service, worked in Brixton prison, and it never failed him. And the art never fails. It's the individual, which you've highlighted before. But I think for me, Aikido has given me more than I can give it ever. And for when I teach and when I train, I try to do my best, and I try to encourage people to do their best. And I think if you can take that, whether it's a physical skill or a mental skill, then it stays relevant, because you can then take that into all aspects of your life. And it should be that type of thing for me.
Okay. John?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's something that has to be taken out of the dojo, and if it's not enhancing your life, then why do it for? I think the physical practice of it, while it's important, keeping it relevant, from a self-defense point of view, or I guess we have to ask, people's why they're doing it for. And a good teacher can basically teach to a certain student's level, but also to what they want. But yeah, I mean, if you can't take it out of the dojo, then for me, that's the most relevant thing that people get out of training, and how it permeates into your everyday life. If it doesn't, then, it's not relevant. But, I think we've all seen how relevant and how effective it is, not just as a martial art, but as a way to enhance potential.
Okay, I'm going to ask each of you individual questions now, right? And this is based on my very limited knowledge. So if the question is flawed, put me in my place, whatever. Okay. So I'll start with Neil first. Yeah.
It's flawed.
Wait. Tomiki Aikido, the Shiai component, right?
Yeah.
You say, we've talked, and you said you don't believe in the Shiai component, but you believe in the methodology.
Yeah.
Right. But now you've transferred to Yoshinkan Aikido, and how do you marry the two?
I don't.
So you teach both. You just leave the Tomiki out separately.
Yeah, yes, and it's really interesting. A lot of the people that train with me now in my dojo have all come from different martial arts, some Tomiki Aikido, some traditional, and all of that sort of stuff. I think I got to the point where when I started in Aikido, it was Tomiki Aikido, and Yoshinkan came along and it was like this. And you become something different than the norm in the style, and you go against the grain of what is considered to be the standard, people freak out. So when I transferred across to the Yoshinkan system, I didn't want anything to do with the Tomiki system. But I think as I've matured and got older, I look back on those lessons and the principles within the system, and I tried to marry them up. And I think that has helped me gain an understanding of those underlying principles, which spread across all, you know, Aiki related arts. They really do. And do we do a lot of free play and stuff in my dojo? No, not anymore. Could I? Probably. Should I? Probably. But I don't think for where my students are at this moment in time, I don't think it would benefit them too much.
Okay, all right. So, John, you know, a big part of Gyokushin Ryu is the sutemi waza, and then that's what I found really interesting. Okay, so how do you marry the straight posture, the straight back of Yoshinkan Aikido with, and you and I know, top Yoshinkan teacher said the shite should never be on the ground.
Yes.
How do you marry those two?
Unless, well, a lot of times you don't have the choice whether you go into the ground. You know, some people have a
experience will come in handy too.
You know, but some people also have a wishbone where their backbone should be. You know, it's like, I'll never go to the ground. It's like, well, you not always have that. But what I like, and I found what Neil said really interesting, because I really like the idea of Tomiki, in that if a technique doesn't work, it's live. You need to quickly adapt. You have to change. Most Yoshinkan people can't do that. And that the Yoshinkan, what I love about the Yoshinkan basics is that it teaches a strong foundation, but its greatest strength is also its weakness at times. People can't get over that. Should the hand be here? Should it be here? Who cares? If a technique doesn't work, and it's probably not going to work the first time, are you able to let go of Kotegashi and do something else? So that live play, I think, I'm not sure if Neil was going down this path, but I think if you introduce it too early, then it just ends up as clashing and it doesn't work. But I think for experienced practitioners, you know, Shodan, Nidan, Sandan, for example, I think it's something that really should be explored, because Tai Sabaki isn't really taught in the Yoshinkan. I know you teach it from your different, from your different experiences, but it's really not taught to a great level. Okay, we have Tainanku and Ni, but that's pretty much it. Yes, we have entering, we have turning, but I think with some tweaks, it could be really, really effective. And the Gyokushin Ryu, yes, I mean, it came predominantly, there's a lot of sutemi waza in it, but the sutemi is often misunderstood in that it's usually as a result of a technique not working. So yes, you can do a sutemi waza, but it's usually you're going for a kotegashi, it doesn't work, then you quickly change and move into sutemi waza. And the reason why newaza is also taught strongly, or there's an emphasis on it, is that if you go down on the ground and then suddenly somebody on top of you and you don't know what to do, that's a massive problem. So, that's one of the differences, I guess. But I just see it as a really, for an advanced practitioner or an intermediate practitioner, it's really complementary.
Now, Daniel, I'm going to throw a quote at you. I was going to save this for later in the show, but a very big name Yoshinkan teacher once said to me that in Iwama, they practice O Sensei's technique. In Yoshinkan, we don't practice his technique. We practice, am I allowed to say we? We practice his principles. In other styles, not in other styles, in another style he didn't name, they do neither. So you've gone from Iwama to Aikikai, and Iwama is very, fairly rigid style, like the Yoshinkan and Tomiki. It's got its basics and stuff. Whereas a lot of I know Aikikai is an umbrella organization, but it doesn't have that. So how do you fit the two together? Are you forced to have to do something or not do things?
Personally, you're talking about personally, how do I fit the two together?
Yes.
I think John just mentioned it. In the Iwama system, yes, some people become very rigid, very robotic. And after a little while, you do need to start moving and responding differently. You just need to go to Kino Nagare, to start doing those flowing techniques. My personal view, if I start on that too early with the students, they miss the basics, they miss the footwork, the important hamni that we have, that is totally missed. The way that I implement the Kino Nagare is a little bit later in that training. Having said that, sometimes I do it a little bit early to teach people how to do the taisabaki, to move around a little bit. Otherwise, they get a little bored. Just to give a preview on what's coming, and give them an interest and have them be more motivated to learn the Kihon, to be better at the Kinonagare stuff, the flowing stuff. So yeah, I stick to the basics. I stick to the Iwama system that I know really well, and I don't deviate from the basics at all. Yeah.
But your downgrades now come from the Aikikai.
Correct. And
is that okay?
That's okay. That is okay.
No one's got an issue with that?
The Aikikai, the home dojo of Doshu Sensei, there was no problem transferring my down ranks from Morihiro Sensei to Aikikai because of the weight that he carried.
Okay.
He was a direct student of the founder. They didn't question. They don't question it at all. From what I know, up to Sandan, there's no questions whatsoever. But if you go a little bit higher, it can be a little bit more tricky. Now, I may sound a little bit political, or I don't bring race into it.
No, Daniel, stop. We're going to get into that one in a few minutes, okay?
But you don't know what I'm going to say. You don't know what I'm going to say.
Sorry?
What am I going to say?
We'll get into that one. Okay. I got a question here, right? This is from John Cole, the author of 8 Times Up. A really good book. You should read it. John, I get some royalties from that ad. Okay. John says, where's the balance between standardized form and creative practice in your style of Aikido? Second part of the question, is that balance what differentiates the different branches of Aikido? Or is that balance what distinguishes the different branches of Aikido? I think we've already talked about this, but for me, it's an important point, and I'd like to talk about it because most of what you guys said is like the time at which you let people do free practice. Yeah. Can we talk about that a little bit? And I want to share my opinion as well. John, do you want to go first?
Sorry, Sensei, can you use the question again?
Where's the balance between standardized form and creative practice in your style of Aikido? Is that balance what distinguishes different branches of Aikido?
Let me have a think about that. Can I pass it on to...
Neil, you want to go first?
Yeah, okay. My first class in Tomiki Aikido, I can still remember most of it. It was a long time ago. We did some kata techniques. They then went Kageri Geiko, which is Jiawaza, free play type stuff. That was the first class. Never done it before. They taught you the back breakful. So they basically taught you 2 techniques out of the Atemiwaza. So either Shomanati or Gamiati, I can't remember, and a Shurarati. So it's all back breakfuls. They taught you that in kata. And then they went, okay, now we'll do Kageri Geiko. First lesson, Tomiki Aikido, you did kata and randa, or the free play essence side by side. And I think what that teaches you in that system, and what it helped me, and what I saw with most Aikido people who don't do that, is that those who who balance the two are more adaptive. You can go and do a seminar and go train in a different style, and you can mimic what that other style is doing. But if you put a Yoshinkan, pure Yoshinkan person, and put them in, like you said, like the other week, in a competitive element, randery type situation, you can't do it because it's not what you're trained to do. So if you do get that balance right, you can become a little bit of a chameleon. And I think that that can help. It helped me, and it's probably put me on a good standing for everything else. Is that in the Yoshinkan? No, of course it's not. You know, most people don't allow that, you know, adaptation and that variation at any point. But in the Tomiki system, it is balanced, and I think that does have a huge amount of benefits. But there is a lot of negativity around it, because as soon as you start putting in that more, I don't want to say competitive element, but winner and loser, my technique worked against your technique, human nature naturally goes in against strength. And that's where it all starts to come undone. And I think that's a big challenge.
Yeah, okay. You know my thoughts on that.
Yeah.
Daniel?
Yeah, just a second. Can you repeat the question again for me, please?
Jesus Christ. I don't even remember it. Okay. Where's the balance between standardized form and creative practice in your style of Aikido? Is that balance what distinguishes different branches of Aikido?
I don't think it distinguishes the different branches of Aikido once you start experimenting with techniques. I mean, I hope so. I hope not. Otherwise, we'll become totally diluted from what you learn. Like Neil just said, I want to bring something up that crosses my mind. Is there's a lot of people out there doing the Iwama system or the Saito Sensei's weapons system, especially the 31 Jokata that we have. And there's a lot on YouTube right now. There's a lot on Facebook, people mimicking the form, but it's empty. They don't have the training. They don't have that background of training with an experienced teacher who can pass down the details of that. So when they cross over to over styles like that, for example, it's just very typical of some of the people who only trained in the Aikikai system, and the weapons is just not there. You can mimic it, but it's not. It's missing a lot of elements, important elements.
Thank you for that, and no comment from me.
Yes.
John?
Yeah. Yeah. I guess it's the you know, to be creative, you have to have a strong foundation to start with. So if the roots are strong and deep, then yeah, you can freestyle and all the rest. But I think you do need a step-by-step progression, and you have to walk before you can run. There are a lot of people there's kind of stages of your learning progression, and there's a famous jazz trumpeter, I'm not sure if you've heard of, by the name of Terry Clark, and he talks, it's very similar to the Shuhari, but he talks about imitation, assimilation, and then innovation. And I think it's a really good way of, I mean, it's pertaining to improvisation in jazz, but it could be written about Aikido and martial arts as well, is that the first step we do, we imitate someone, and that's how we all learn regarding what style of Aikido or what martial art you do. But also you have to assimilate that in yourself. So I think a lot of people are still in the kind of imitation phase, or they skip assimilation and try and innovate straight away. So I think with a step-by-step progression, once you have the form, then you can, or once you know the notes and the scales, then you can make the music. And I think that's what martial arts and Aikido is.
So this is my 2 bobs worth, yeah? So if you do Kendo, even on your first or second day, at the end of the class, you will put on the Kendo gi, and you'll start smacking each other in the head, right? You do Judo, at the end of the class, you do Randori. You do Karate, at the end of the class, you'll do a bit of sparring. Boxing, at the end of the class, you do a bit of boxing. It's all controlled, but in Aikido, at the end of the class, you bow and go home. Maybe you do Shumas Dosa. But where is that free play? And maybe that's why we're losing people. But also, you know, all of us come from very regimented styles. I heard that when Stan Prandtl, I could be wrong, when Stan Prandtl went to the Yoshinkan, he was put in front of the mirror and taught the Kion Dosa for days on end. He left and went to Iwama. And then look at all the coverage Saito Sensei got from Stan Prandtl. That could have been the Yoshinkan. So is there something wrong in the system? That's my question. I'm throwing it out there. We're going to move on, yeah? And this is from Vaughan Ryan. He's a Tomiki Aikido teacher in Ireland. Invite me. I'd love to come. On a similar theme, he says, one thing that all students experience is variation in what is put forward as standardized form. It's a difficult one. Between even different sensei in the same dojo, what advice to give your students on how to accommodate this? So basically, different teachers teaching differently, the same thing differently. John, you want to go first this time?
Yeah. I mean, that's a great question, because you see that a lot in the Hombu dojo, and they say like the basics are the same, but one teacher emphasizes.
Once again, you have to clarify which Hombu dojo.
Sorry, the Ochiai of old.
No, that is in Aikikai Hombu dojo.
Oh, sorry, the Yoshinkan Hombu dojo.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there was variations within certain teachers, how certain teachers would teach, and I think it's up to the student to just, or maybe someone has to explain to the student that there's different ways of doing it, and you know, it can be confusing, but that's also a way of learning as well.
So how should the student deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, that can cause a great deal of frustration. That's a really good question. How
did you deal with that?
I just said us when I was a sensei, because we used to get told various things and do this, and then you do it, and then another teacher would scream at you for doing that. But one thing that you have to, like, that's a little bit of a different situation, because we were treated worse than shit, and we paid for the privilege. But yeah, that's just, you know, I think what you have to do, and people call it, and this is kind of a ridiculous thing, like you have to steal the teacher's technique, whatever. I think that's bullshit. You don't have to, that for me, that's like kind of a devious. You don't have to be devious about it. You just you pick things that you like, and then you put them together. And that's, for me, what I've done with all my teachers, you know?
Okay.
To answer your question, no idea.
Sorry. Go on.
Sorry. To answer to a regular student, it's hard, because it's, it's conflicting, and it's, you know, it could be quite annoying, really. But for us, we just bowed our head and off we went.
Daniel's back. All right. So I wasn't anxious there, but I just said us and just got on with it. Yeah. I had, leading up to my Godan test, in 2 days, I was corrected 4 different ways by 4 different teachers. Same technique. Yeah. Neil?
For me, I would do what the teacher says, because you could learn something personally. And then, as John said, you take that into your own, and eventually you like a jigsaw puzzle, you make your own picture using different people's techniques and, well, not technique, principles, because especially within, you know, more kata form, you can, that's the one good thing I liked about the Yoshinkan is, I remember David Rubens saying, he said, you can go anywhere in the world, Shomanuchi Ikajo Saiichi is front strike, right side, off to the right, cross step and down. Go anywhere, it's the same. But you could do that with a first dan and a fifth dan, and they'd feel very different. And when someone teaches, how you explain something could be very different to how somebody else explains something. And how they explain it, you might just have that light bulb moment. So for me, I always go with an open mind. I try it their way. I'm fortunate that I've trained with many different high-ranking teachers. Sometimes I like what they say, sometimes I don't like what they say, but I always try it. And I always try to then bring it back to what I believe. And does it need to evolve and change what I believe and how I feel about it? And I can quite honestly say that I've listened to you and trained with you, and one of the things that stick out for me, you did Katate Mochi Shihonage ni, and I quite liked how you explained it. And I went, I'll take that. And I think that's what you have to do. I don't think you should just sit there and go, I'm going to follow this one person, because you have to be open and adaptive enough to just take it all on board, find what you find good, and then eventually you'll find yourself.
Cool. Good. Daniel?
100% agree. I'm okay, man. I'm all right, man. I'm not that old yet. Not as you, anyway. Anyway, no, the students, you know, they need to just be a mirror. I heard that expression said, you know, and in the dojo, by one of my very good friends is be a mirror, whoever is teaching on the day. And that's one of the problems, I think. In my dojo, personally, in my dojo, there's only one way of there's a teacher. If I'm teaching on the day, everybody does the same thing. And I expect my direct students to be teaching the same way that I'm teaching in my dojo. You know, it's my dojo, and that's what I want to pass on. Don't come bringing variations of stuff and things from different things that you may have learned. If you want to do a seminar on that by yourself, you're free to do that. But that is the policy in my dojo. In the Iwama system, in the Iwama dojo, there's only one teacher, Saito Sensei, and everybody does the same thing that he did. Now, since his passing, that's a very good point that you bring up, because teachers now come from Hombu Dojo and they teach every day. It's a roster. Every day is a different teacher. And the students have to adapt. They have to adapt to the style that they're teaching, and even being corrected from one day to the next of a technique that was just taught a certain way by one teacher. You go and repeat that, and that next teacher will tell you, "Dame, wrong." You know,
Daniel, it's been like that in the Aikikai Hombu Dojo since the 80s.
But that's the thing. I never trained in the Aikikai
That's the first time I went there and I saw what I saw was, I was shocked. Yeah, but you know, that, sorry to all my Aikikai brethren, but yeah. Anyway, so, Von Ryan, my thing would be, you know, your teacher says, the teacher of the moment says to do something, you do it. And if you're doing something differently, they know where it's from. All these gentlemen in front of me, they see a technique, they know who your teacher was. And so you don't have to explain, so-and-so taught this to me. They know, but they want you to try it this way, so you try it this way. That's for a beginner. For a more advanced student, take it on board and then make it your own. And if you cannot do that, you're not advanced. So put the ego away, just say os, and that's it. Okay, which leads me to the next question. John Marshall's favorite, the word os. Okay. Daniel, you go first.
Oh, you want me to go first? Okay.
Well, I'll tell you why.
I did some research.
Why. Because when I first met Saito Sensei in the early 80s, I went to a seminar. He did not like me saying os.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, and the more he berated me, the more I said os, which infuriated him even more. But when he found out that I was the Yoshinkan practitioner, he patted me on the back and said, "Yoshinkan, no change." So you go first. Why?
So is it?
No,
sorry. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you over here. Keep going.
No, go on. I'm used to it.
No, but it said to you, you're Yoshinkan, so you're fine. That's what he said.
Yeah, you're fine. He thought I was Aikikai. So, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I did some research on that, right? Because I've got my friends who started with Sensei in the 70s, you know, early 80s, like you said. So you're the guy maybe who they talked about this when they said one time there was Yoshinkan people came to the dojo, where Saito Sensei said, okay, no more us, no us in this dojo. And everybody responded with us. But the thing is, why they don't use it in the Iwama system, why we don't use it? Because it sounds very militaristic, from what I've been told. And us, as you guys know better than me, the original of the word is Ohayo gozaimasu, and it came from the Navy, right? It became short, and the kanji was given after the fact to that word. So that's another very big senpai in Iwama would say, whatever you use in the dojo, the terms you use, ohayo onegaishimasu, arigatou gozaimasu, you should be able to use the same words out in the real world. When you're out walking the street, you won't be using everybody that you meet and to use one word for everything.
I'm going to cut you short there, but the Daniel Brasse I know has said os to me.
I do. Because I respect your style. I respect your you know, your traditions. And like I said, I'm a mirror. I become a mirror. If I walk in your dojo, when I meet you, even when we talk to each other, I will say us, and I have no problem with that.
Isn't that hypocritical?
No, I don't think so. It's just for me, I'm being respectful and I understand the background, I will not use it in my dojo for for Iwama Aikido. But I understand the meaning and I teach the students what I've learned from the meaning of the word, and they can make their own mind, but we don't use it in the dojo.
Okay. Neil?
For me, it's not just
Sorry,
to acknowledge.
Neil, you don't say that in, it's not used in Tomiki Aikido, is it?
No, not at all. Well, not that I'm aware of anyway.
No, it's not.
For me, obviously, because my first sort of introduction to Aikido never had that, and then when you go into the Yoshinkan and stuff, it's literally us. And for me, I'd rather have us is that I acknowledge what you're saying, and I'm going to do what you're asking me to do, and I'm going to do my best. And I've said to people before when they're ussing to me, for example, and they go away and do something, I said, why are you ussing? You've just gone away and did something completely different than what I've just said or tried to do. So you might as well just go, fuck off. I'm not going to listen to you. I'm going to go off and do my own thing. It has to have meaning and feeling about, it's not just acknowledging what somebody's saying. It means, for me, I'm going to go listen to what you say. I'm taking it on board and I'm going to try it. I'm going to do my best. And if you overuse it and then you go and do something completely different, I'm going to fuck off the mat. It's not worthy. Sorry, but it's true. We can argue the toss about it. If you're sitting there going us, and you then not doing anything that the teacher does, then sorry, then you're that horrible 4-letter word that ends in "ant." Sorry.
Okay. John Marshall, your favorite topic, the use of the word os.
Sensei, well, I respect the word very much. It has a deep meaning to Yoshinkan practitioners, and for me, it's something I use as a term of respect whenever I meet a fellow practitioner, a high-ranking student. If I see Master Sensei or Thambu Sensei, it's my first word. It's a greeting which conveys respect. The problem I have about it is the overuse of it, as Neil said, on the mat, when it's just like, I always compare it to "I love you." It starts to lose the shine and meaning if you hear it 30 times a day. I understand why in other systems in the Gyokushin they don't use it. Washizu Sensei thought it was, when he came to Melbourne, he was really like, oh wow. He was really impressed by it because he said, in Japan it's not a thing in their dojo, but he respects the spirit it conveys. And so I thought that was really interesting. I just have a problem with it. It's just at seminars, the teacher raises his hand or burps or farts and the students are all singing. And it's like, guys, just relax, shut up, listen to what the teacher's saying and apply what they're saying. As Neil just said, apply what they're saying rather than just ussing or using it on Facebook as a one-word reply to every single thing. For me, it's too much, So I think it should be tempered. It should be used in the appropriate place and has its time and a place. I use the word, and I'll never stop using it. But moderation is key when it comes to ussing.
I think I'm quite guilty because I enforced it everywhere I went and taught, but then it got kind of carried away. And you're right, it's kind of lost its, it's not when you say os, it's how you say it. It's got to have that heart and that spirit. But the more important thing in that question about os is, in Yoshinkan Aikido, I asked, I knew the answer to this question, but I asked Obata Sensei why we say os in Yoshinkan Aikido, and he said he didn't say it. He said it was rude. I said, but when you were in Uchideshi, why? Why? You said it, why? Why did Kancho Sensei insist? And he said one word, Takoshoku. That was the university that Shoda Gozo Kancho went to. And it was a very militaristic university. And that's the basis of the Yoshinkan culture, that regimentation, that militaristic part. Whereas Aikikai became more of a gentleman's thing. Maybe I'm reading it wrongly. All the Koryu were different. They didn't like the, Gyokushin, Judo, Yoshinkan Aikido used it. And I think it's emblematic of the way we practice, how we use that word. And that's why I asked the question. I see a lot of Aikido styles that, you know, forgive me, but they say oniyashimasu, oniyashimasu, and there's no balls to the Aikido. I mean, there's no balls to a lot of the Yoshinkan practitioners either, but that also is there to maintain that. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's your manifestation of your spirit. That's and it has to permeate into all, obviously your technique, but also all aspects of life. For me, it's, you know, it's a simple word, but it means I'm not going to give up. I'm going to strive. I'm going to do my best. I'm going to push my spirit. But, you know, it's something that it's an internal motivator, and it can be expressed externally, but not fucking 50 times. Just say it once or twice, acknowledge, you know, acknowledge your teacher and do the word justice.
Yeah. Look, I'm happy if you do it 50 times, but as long as you do it with spirit, and not to punctuate a teacher's instructions. Yeah. Neil, you got any thoughts on that, or Daniel?
No, I agree with John. I agree with everything, actually, to be fair. As I said, do your best. Well,
he's got a great taste. Good man.
Well, exactly. You know, but it's not difficult, is it? You know, if you do anything with meaning and you try to do your best, and you can summarize that in a word, then it has to have meaning and feeling. And if you then turn around and say, us, you know, how are you today? Us. What? You know, I'm okay. I'm good. Okay. You know, if you're doing it on the mat, you're acknowledging, you're accepting, you're going to do your best. And if you can take that, as I said earlier, take that into everything you do in your life, you're not going to go far wrong. You really aren't. And I think that if, as you said, if you do it 100 times and it has no meaning, like doing the sword cuts 1,000 times with no meaning, you're better off just doing it once with everything you got.
Yep. Good analogy. Daniel?
Yeah, it's not, you know, it becomes, I think it's a big part of the teacher's responsibility as well. And the culture of the dojo. If they come from the dojo and that's all they say all the time and for everything, you will hear that from them. You know, it comes down to implementing, you know, a culture. It's a teacher's responsibility to do that. But when you go to seminars, it's different. Then you're surrounded with people all over the place, and they can get on your nerves. You keep hearing.
On the flip side, you know, I hear people say oniyashimasu so much that instead of saying arigatou gozaimashita, they say oniyashimasu. When the teacher gives them something or shows them something, they say oniyashimasu instead of saying thank you or hi. So I've heard that so many times. Anyway, that's it. Look, my next question, I want to play a game with you guys, right? And I actually want to ask you, why, as a someone who's scrolled the net and trolled the net, why should I come and train with Neil Saunders, or why should I come and train with Daniel Brasse, or why should I train with John Marshall? But I know you're not going to sell yourself, so I'm going to change it. And I'm going to say, I want to go to Japan to train. Which dojo should I go and train at? Neil? Or
to Japan?
Japan? In Japan,
anywhere,
or Japan, wherever. I know what you're going to say.
My dojo? No.
Yeah,
to
sure.
me, that no.
It's your dojo. That's fine. Good. Yeah.
No, not at all. Not at all. I am egotistical, but I'm not that, you know, confident in what I do. But there's only two places if you want to go, and that's you and Mustard Sensei. Now, for me personally, I would always put Mustard Sensei as the place to go if you want to get, you know, everything. You know, it's the teacher. You follow the teacher, not the style. And for me, as I said, personally, Mustard Sensei changed everything for me for Aikido. So it depends of where you are in your journey, I think, and what you need. But as I said, for me, you go to Vancouver, Burnaby, you won't go far wrong.
Okay. All right. I'm going to come back to that one. John?
Can we time travel or currently?
Currently,
in
look,
Japan?
you set it up. I thrown the question there, you set it up.
No. There's a reason why for the last 8, almost 9 years, I've been going to Shizuoka. For me, if you're going to go to Japan and you want the whole experience, you can't go far. You can't go past that place. For me, it's very similar to Saramban, which is a very special dojo for me, and of course for you. But it's people care. They look after you. It's a community. It's a culture. And if you wanted to experience the whole experience, I couldn't go past either of all those dojos, and your dojo as well. So they're my top 3, in no particular order. And unfortunately, it's sad because there should be one place, without a doubt, that people should be going in our particular style, or Yoshinkan style. But I've bypassed that for many years and gone straight to Shizuoka to get something else.
And you?
I'll probably get in trouble for saying that, but that's okay. I'll speak from the heart. I would say go to Hitohiro Sensei, my teacher, Hitohiro Saito Sensei's dojo. If you want the true experience of Uchideshi, true experience of, the Iwama, strong Iwama system, and to have a consistency in the teaching and the techniques being taught, I have no hesitation to send someone to Hitohiro Saito Sensei, even though I'm not part of his organization. He's still, as they consider him my teacher. It's been for over 20 years. So
I'm going to come back to that question later, right? But none of you bastards answered the question. Not where you want to go, but where would you send Joe Blow?
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, all right. Anywhere I want to go, I want to be able to train, right? Okay. Now, if I went to, I'm sorry, but if I went to Burnaby, there'd only be one uke that I could train with. If I went to the...
What an uke?
Sorry?
What an uke?
But that's not enough. That's not for you. Training with one mental state. You're training with one body shape. You need different body shapes. You need different people. The last time
are you going there to live forever, or are you going there to get a basis of what you want to do and then move on?
Both. No, to move on. Yeah. Because
I think that if you're already studying and training, then going to Burnaby would be a great thing. If you are new to it, and like you say, you want the whole Uchideshi experience and all of that stuff, then come to you, and maybe
not talking about
no, I don't mean that rude. No, but it's but it depends on what you want, and it depends on where you are, to be honest with you. And you can't, there's no one fit all. No dojo is perfect for, it really does depend on the individual, what they require and what they need. And I don't need the full-on 100 back breakfalls anymore. I can't do 100 back breakfalls anymore. But it depends on what you need at that point. And if you're new, then
what I need, or maybe not me, maybe me at Nidan, Sandan, Yondan, what I needed was a place that had a lot of good ukes and a lot of fit young people who could throw me around and who I could experiment on. And I don't, you guys got a place like that in mind? Because at the moment I don't. And that's important for the art to keep going, to have the young fit ukes that you can do stupid things on and smash and get smashed in return. I'm not seeing that anymore. Correct me, please. All right then.
So your dojo doesn't have that then?
Yes, we do, but not enough. Not like we had in the old days when, John, when you were training, you, Faith, Alia, Tom, Mitch, there were heaps. And now, if I wanted to do a photo shoot in the old day, it was like, oh, bang, you know. Now I have to think who I'm going to call.
Is that a
You're so
bigger
right.
challenge of the art itself, though?
Say again?
Is that a bigger challenge of the art itself and participation?
Oh, I haven't got enough beers in my fridge for that one.
Oh, can I add something to that, Joe Sensei?
Yes, please.
Yeah. I mean, you've been to our dojo in Melbourne. You know, field Aikido was like your dojo, very big. And by the time when I was training my senpais, you know, they were all big guys. There was this group of Nidan, Sandan that were just strong. And you could, you know, I got tossed around. They were, you know, they're tossing each other around. And eventually these people moved on, right? They went to a different school or life happened. Life just happens. Nothing stays static. And in my dojo in San Francisco was the same thing. When I was forming the first group of students, I had some terrific ukes. They made me look really good when we did demonstrations and people came and watched. You could really throw people around. And again, life happens. These people moved states or moved on. And now I'm looking at my kids, the youth coming up in rank. And just last week, I was looking at some of their ukemi. I go, wow, that's the next generation now coming on. And there's the next group of people that are going to be very strong, being thrown around and throw each other around. And it's just a cycle. It just stays the same. We just have to keep forming new ones as they come to the dojo. Because I miss the old days. I miss being in yeah.
I hope so, Daniel, because without good ukes, the top teacher cannot progress. And if the top teacher can't progress, then the dojo doesn't progress.
Right.
Okay. So anyway, let's move on. Right now, let me preface this question. It's a bit sensitive question, right? People come from one style of Aikido and study another style of Aikido, and they get downgrades and they move up very fast. So in the early 2000s, people like me or of my rank in the Yoshinkan, we were looking at the Yoshinkan thinking, we took 30 years to get to Rokudan, and people were coming out from the woodwork we'd never seen before, and they were getting to Rokudan like that. Started late 90s, early 2000s, and we were pretty miffed, and I was always of the thought that no, that's wrong. And you two gentlemen, Neil and John, you made me rethink that. Okay, so I mean, both of you, Neil, you went from your base in Tomiki Aikido, you joined Yoshinkan, you went pretty fast to the level you got, and John, you went pretty fast in Gyokushin Ryu as well. I'm not asking you to legitimize anything, but I want your thoughts on that because it's changed my mind. So, and Daniel, you can jump in too if you want, but your thoughts on that, please. I've got a special question for you, Daniel, later. No problem.
I'm worried.
Daniel, you go first.
Okay. For me, I guess it depends on a couple of things. One, the individual, and their motives for doing it. Mustard Sensei always says, three things. Is it good for the student? Is it good for the dojo? Is it good for the system? When I joined the Yoshinkan, I asked Mustard and Ruben Sensei, I'd like to join the Yoshinkan, park the Tomiki stuff. And David turned around and went, I've been waiting years for you to say this. And then Yasuhisa Shioda was coming over. Cut a long story short, it was a handshake. And we was on the mat and he lined everybody up. So David was the highest rank, and then it was Paul. And they went, who's the next rank? And David went to me, and I went, and he went. So I went and stood next to Paul Stevens. And after that, we signed the forms, and it was done. But for a long time, and it still is, there's huge amounts of insecurities in that. And I try to do my best. I appreciate that I didn't start in Yoshinkan Aikido, but there was skills that were transferable. And as I said, I still struggle with that today, but I think that it was good for me at the time. It was good for the dojo and probably not very good for Yoshinkan Aikido. But I think over the years, I think it's been a positive thing for Yoshinkan Aikido, in my opinion. Now, I can't say for other, like you say, downgrades coming out of the ranks and all that sort of stuff. The big problem, I think, I think we touched on it previously outside of this, is that ranking is the perfect pyramid scheme. It's the perfect pyramid scheme. And you can sell rank to people, and then they can sell rank. But that's what it is, though.
Let's not go there. Let's not go there. I haven't got enough beer in my fridge for that one. John?
Yeah, no,
I'm going to take you up on something though, Neil, in a second.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I agree with Neil. I think it's the individual and who's giving the rank. For me, it was something I never expected and I didn't want. I went there because I had a sincere desire to learn, and they were just open arms, you know. The members couldn't do enough for me. So much so, like they, you know, pick me up from my hotel, take me training, take me out for dinner, and they really were miffed at the beginning, like, what's this Yoshinkan guy doing here? And, you know, a lot of the stuff was quite different, but a lot of it was very similar as well. And I think, you know, I went there with just a sincere attitude to learn, but I never expected any ranks, any titles or anything like that. And I actually spoke to Kinzo-san about it. He just said, Sensei has been watching you. This is what he thinks you deserve. And I just did an internal us, and I'm like, wow, that's a lot to live up to. And I'm not ready. I wasn't ready then, but it's something that I hope I can evolve into and become what he believes he thinks I can be. So that's it in a nutshell. Without going into maybe what you were talking about, it miffed me as well in the, all these people from countries that I can't even pronounce were coming as 6th and 7th dans into the Yoshinkan. And, you know, I've been pretty regular. I was quite regular with my trips to Japan. I was there for close to 7 years living there. I know I never heard of half these guys, or more than half these guys. Sometimes it's used for a teacher to build a name and to get students. And I think in that case, it's deplorable. I think if it's done for the right reasons and the sincerity, then, you know, it's hard to make a generalization, but it's up to the individual. But,
okay, I'm going to be diplomatic for a change and say, fuck 'em. What makes you different? What makes your situation different? How is your transference of grades okay? I got my ideas, but I want to hear it from you. How is yours okay and theirs not okay? Neil?
I still struggle with it. I'll be honest. But I have to believe that with Mustard Sensei and Ruben Sensei, if they say it's okay, then it's okay.
So you're saying the onus is on the teacher?
It's the integrity of that person, yeah. And also, they knew me. It's not like they didn't know me.
Receiving the certificate, the person issuing the certificate. Who is it?
There's a responsibility for both, obviously. But I think that I have a good enough relationship with both men, and in particular with Mustard Sensei, that they could judge my character, that I would be sincere in what I wanted to do. And they were going to help me, and they did. And it was the best thing for me. And yeah, I just have to, you know, thank them for that and try to live up to their expectations all the time. That's all I can do.
Okay.
You know?
John? Sorry. You finished now?
No, that's finished.
All right. John?
yeah. So apparently in the Yoshinkan tradition, Mochizuki Minoru Sensei had if another high-ranking teacher from another art came, there was this recognition of prior learning thing. They were either given a Nidan or Sandan to start with. So that was as a matter of respect. Regardless, I'm not quite sure how much, if it was from another art or if it was from the same art. So I think that's what perhaps it was based on. It wasn't, I was a 6th dan in Yoshinkan Aikido when I went there. So that was not the rank that I was given. I didn't ask about tests. I didn't ask about gradings. That was awarded to me. Yeah. So I went there with a white belt and they said, no, just you can wear your own belt. And then over a couple of years, that's how I got promoted. So yeah, rightly or wrongly, I'm not sure, but yeah, it's something that I'm growing into. But to compare it, I mean, I don't know these other people that came in years ago, what was how these teachers based You know, did they give them an equivalent rank? Was it a high rank? Was it a Shodan or a Nidan? I think that also matters as well. Because if you're, you know, you're an average practitioner and you're given a 6th or 7th Dan, then that begins to mean nothing.
Okay.
If you're giving those away. Yeah.
People, neither of them answered the fucking question, but I will answer it for them. Daniel, do you want to add anything on that one?
I mean, we have Aikido in itself has a big history of that, right? Stan Pranin wrote extensively on inflation of Dan ranks when the art was just starting off. And we have a history of those inflations because they wanted to promote the art, and people came from different styles of martial arts.
That's different though. That's different. That's different from what we're talking about. We're talking about
that people coming from different styles, right? People coming from different styles and being given, you know, down ranks. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Daniel. Before I smash you with my question.
Go for it.
Okay. So what John and Neil didn't say, and what they should have said was, not what they should have said, but from my observance, is that they built a relationship with their teachers. And that's what a lot of people didn't do. They didn't build a relationship with the main dojo. It was just went there once for 3 days and then got a 4th dan. A few years later, on the anniversary of the 4th dan, you get a 5th dan, and then put in a video and you get a 6th dan. And that was happening. It was just like, it was a dan churning factory. These guys took the opportunity, not took the opportunity, made the opportunity and made a relationship with their teacher. And that's what the difference is. And everyone, you know, there's an old Japanese saying, Shishonaki Budo Nashi. If there's no teacher, there's no Budo. These guys have a direct link to their teachers from where the grades came. The teachers can see their level and they can see where they're going. And you know, so you guys made me change my mind because I was against that at the start. But you know, in 1989, I went to the Yoshinkan. All my previous grades were from Thambu Sensei. I was going to test, and there was no record of me testing at the Yoshinkan. So after a lot of hissing and stuff, they said, okay, Kancho Sensei will test you, and if you do badly, you fail. And if you pass, he'll decide whether you're Nidan, Sandan, or Yondan. Do you accept? I said, yes, that's fine, no problem. Do you accept if he gives you a Nidan because you're Sandan now? I said, no, that's fine, no problem, whatever he wants. And that was the way it was. I didn't end up testing because I had a problem with one of the teachers, but that's a separate issue. So, you know, it's like you build a relationship, you make yourself known to the teachers know you. And that's how you get your Dan grades. You want to change styles, make yourself known. Don't write fucking letters and send videos. Guys, come on, get real. Okay, that's it. Daniel, on to you. I want to ask you a hypothetical question that's not hypothetical, right? So there was a teacher who had an Iwama 5th dan. But he also said he had an Aikikai 5th dan and an Iwama Yondan in weapons. So in total, he had 14 dan grades. Is that ethical?
No, not ethical, but also incorrect. I mean, you can't add your dan ranks. I mean, I'll be 8th dan now. Right? It's just ridiculous. That's just ego. That's the ego that gets in the way. That's the individual person's choice to say that and to claim that. But I don't think you have credibility in the real world if you bring that out to me anyway, or to you for that matter.
But it did happen. It did happen.
It did? Okay.
It did. And both you and I know the person.
Oh, okay.
But we won't go there. But it's the, for me, it's endemic of a bigger problem with Aikido teachers. We talk about the art of love and harmony. And Neil, you said in Tomiki Aikido, the competition brought up lots of egos, right? I think the lack of competition, the lack of someone being challenged builds bigger egos. And then that's the problem with, you know, look at YouTube, and you'll know that, you know, they say right, you can read your own bullshit, you can write your own bullshit, you can talk your own bullshit, you can have people believing your own bullshit, but never ever ever believe your own bullshit. And that's what's happened. Look at YouTube. Look at what people are doing now. And you know, that's where Aikido is going. The egos are, you know, in the words of John Marshall, the egos are writing checks that the body can't cash.
Oh, I was just about to say that.
So, you know, and I think the lack of that competitive element, where we can't question the teacher, we got to say os and just do as we're told. You know, is that to the detriment of Aikido, you think, guys?
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's changing. It has to change. And, you know, I think it is slowly changing. I think what's more important is also the senior teachers, we need to keep learning, we need to research, and we need to make it interesting for our students and find ways of catering to more people. Yeah, I mean, therein lies the challenge, but, you know.
Get really good at being really crap at something.
Do you want to explain it?
Well, if Yoshinkan is a brilliant system, and I've trained with lots of different people, and I guess it's the same in all arts, is that, especially in the kata, people like to smash people. I mean, absolutely smash them. And you're standing there, and you're not resisting. You're being the good uke, you're playing the role, and they go and cream you. And you're like, okay, now let's do that again, but this time I'm not going to play. And all of a sudden it changes, and there's a really fine balance between the two. And again, it comes down to, as I said, you can get really good at being really bad, you know. And it's only in martial arts, I mean, I'm going to steal one of Mustard's lines, it's only in martial arts that you can get away with it. If you're not very good at golf, they're never going to let you on Augusta, ever, you know. But you can get really good at martial arts with high rank, with no skill, and yet everybody thinks you're great because you're cherry picking your ukes who are going to die for you. And then they wonder why it doesn't work when somebody punches them in the face. You know,
Daniel?
really good at not being really bad.
Oh, no, I totally agree with both gentlemen there. I mean, you said all the words. I don't need to add any more than that. It's like you said, Mark Larson Sensei just mentioned that a couple of days to us, is don't write a check that your ass can't cash. And and you gotta be realistic.
Okay, gentlemen, we're going to wind it up now. Each of you get the final say. I mean, I get the final say, but you guys get to, you know. John, you want to go first?
Yeah, so just further more to what I just wanted to add, I think we need to always reevaluate, research what we're doing. The idea is to, you know, the DI, or the fundamental principles, is something that we need to always study, think about, dissect, put back together, make relevant to us, make relevant to our students, present Aikido into an interesting way. Yeah, and work a lot on developing good ukemi, good uke. That takes a backseat in a lot of dojos. I think the role of uke is totally misunderstood in a lot of, I mean, from people who don't know about uke, it looks like they're being compliant, but to be a really good uke, and I know you've said it many times, all the great shiteis or toris have been amazing ukes. So I think we really need to work on developing that. Yeah, and seeing if we can, we're not reinventing Aikido, but we have to be cognizant, I guess, of it's not in a time capsule. We have to make it alive and make it relevant to us. It's an art form, and an art form is a creative expression of our imagination. So as long as it doesn't get too weird or
Californian.
Yeah, I think, you know, there has to, we're doing Budo, and, you know, Budo is something, not something we do, it's something we are. And as teachers, we really need to kind of pass it on to the next generation.
Us. I said us. Neil?
I think train with lots of different teachers if you get the opportunity. So if there's a high-ranking teacher in town, go and train with them, because it might just change your life. From my experience, there's you go and see a high-ranking teacher, 3 things can happen if they are phenomenal. is that you'll change for the better. You'll accept what they're doing, but ignore it, which is stupid, or you'll say, no, that's not for me, or you'll just say, that's rubbish. I'd rather take the opportunity to go and learn and get a different spotlight on the same sort of thing that I'm interested in, and hopefully I can steal something from them, which makes my Aikido better. And that's what I've always tried to do. And if you do that, as I said, it might just change you, what you're doing, and also you might, you know, become a better person for it.
Daniel?
Yeah, I just want to share what Bill Sensei Shihan shared with us when Saijo Sensei told him, if you're looking for a dojo, how do you know you found a good dojo? And he shared with us what Sensei said at the time. He said only 3 things. It's funny, right? 3 things. Number 1, does the Sensei's techniques work? Do they work? Number 2, are the senpais, the senior people, looking after the junior people? And number 3, are people enjoying the practice? If you have these 3 elements in a dojo, maybe you're in a good place. But on a different topic, on the final say here, is from my observation this morning, speaking with all you gentlemen, is the similarities between all of us. You know, we're all trying to do very, very similar things in our respective systems of Aikido, and I think we should have more of these collaborations getting together.
Daniel,
and so
you're trying to tell me that's harmony in the world of Aikido? Nah, come on.
Between
There's
us
no
here,
harmony in the world
I'm not talking about anybody else right now. I pick and choose my crowd. How's that?
Okay. Thanks, gents. Anyone want to add anything? Any last words? No? Okay. Look, for a long time, this title on this book, It's Heart and Appearance, has always intrigued me. I still haven't figured it out. And for me, I kind of feel like the heart of Aikido and the appearance should be the same. But I haven't quite figured it out because some of my teachers, the heart and appearance aren't quite the same. And, you know, everyone that I interview because I respect and because they have something to offer off the mats. And I'm going to leave you with a quote from this. It's not a very nice quote, and it's there. It was written to me, but I'll share it with you. And I mean this to you guys. I don't give a fuck what style you call it. Your teaching continues to elevate and inspire us. And that's my compliment to the 3 of you. So please keep inspiring and elevating. People, next week, not next week, we're going 2 weeks every time with hashtag Keep the Flame Alive. We're interviewing Ramlan Ortega Shihan, Mark Hadiaja Sensei, and Tadashi Narita Sensei. They're 3 ASI instructors. And we're going to talk to them about their models for running a dojo. All 3 of them run full-time dojos, and it's quite different. But also their experience in starting the dojo, running a dojo, very different. So we'll talk about that. And I'm starting a new series called the Pioneer Series. Unfortunately, this will be on Aiki TV online, and so you have to pay to get it. And we're going to talk about, sorry, Daniel, it's not for heretics, it's for Yoshinkan system practitioners only. I'm a heretic too, actually. But it's about people like Kimura Sensei. He won't talk about himself, so I'm going to talk about to his top students about his life and maybe get people to talk about Nagano Sensei, Tambiraja Sensei, people who started the Yoshinkan system in their country. So we're going to call it the Pioneer Series, and that's going to be on aikitv.online. Gentlemen, thank you very much, and thank you to Shudokan Books again. Oh, there we go. Yep. Cheers. Os.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Daniel, you got to say Os.
Os.
Oh.